Have you ever looked back at some old photos and thinking, do you know what? I'd love to actually recapture that moment, but in a slightly different way or in a creative way. Well, thank you to today's sponsor, Adobe Firefly. That's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to look at some old photographs that I've got of me snowboarding and recreate them into something a little bit more creative, and kind of like just have a look at how they can be changed and altered using different partner models inside of Adobe Firefly. Let's dive in and take a look. Now, first up, what we're going to do is I'm going to come into Firefly Boards. This is the part where I like to kind of like add my reference images and start playing about with things. So if we come down the side here, we can actually add our content, and we can choose from our device or from our Adobe Cloud Storage. Now I've gone ahead and actually added those in. We've got those just here off to the side, and we can see, you know, there's me with my helmet on with the mountains in the background. There's one of me snowboarding down the mountain, and then this one actually is from a totally different holiday of where I was up in the mountains and took this, and I really liked that as a reference image because I felt like it really captured the vibe. Now, first of all, what I wanted to do was kind of like think like, well, how can I recapture this? And I'm thinking like, well, maybe I can recapture this in an illustrative kind of like way. And that's where we then started coming up with these ones here. So this one here was an option where I kind of like wanted to add me snowboarding down the mountain in an illustrative way with some electric sparks flying behind me. And I thought, you know, that's actually really captured the same kind of like vibe as the mountain here. You can see it's got a very similar look and feel and kind of like mountain line there. And this was using the Nano Banana option for generating this image inside of Adobe Firefly. Editor me here, and I forgot to show you, when we come into the Firefly boards and we're typing in the prompt here, underneath you can actually add up to 4 reference images for Gemini 2.5, and for Gemini 3 it's 6 images, and you just add those in by clicking on these options down here. You can see this is a blank one. If I wanted to add in a different reference image, I could just then click the eyedropper and select that on my artboards here, and then that's going to actually have and use these as reference images. I just wanted to kind of jump in and do that because I didn't really explain that, and I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. So that was the Nano Banana option. And then I kind of like thought, well, I want to kind of like play about with this a little bit more. And then kind of like this again was also, if we click on the load button here, we can see this was the Gemini 2.5 or Nano Banana Pro again. And then I thought to myself, well, actually, I want to kind of like have a look at something a little bit more kind of like realistic. These were kind of like really good and creative, but then we've got this option here. So this option here, if I click on the load option, I just updated the prompt down here to be more photorealistic, but also still have the lightning coming down. And I thought this was a really kind of like good way to kind of like add a little bit something extra, a little bit more fun. And again, these are all using Gemini 2.5, which is one of my favorite models. There's 2.5 and there's also Gemini 3 or Nano Banana Pro, which I really like as well. And then I thought like, well, how can we kind of like update and have a play about with these a little bit more? And then that's where we kind of like started playing about with the lighting options. So we've got these options here. Okay, let me just put these in here. These first 2 at the top here, again, if I just click on the load button, you can see they were generated with 2.5. And also if we hover over here, you can see when we hover over, you can see the source of the image of those. And then I thought, actually, I really want to kind of play about with the lighting a bit more, and this is where Nano Banana Pro or version 3 comes in. And you can see these, if I click on load on these, you see I've used Gemini 3.0, and I'm using the same prompts as I've used for these 2 up above, but you can see that the lighting on them and the depth of field is such a totally different vibe. And that's where trying different partner models inside of Adobe Firefly actually kind of like makes a difference. Whether you're using them in Adobe Firefly, you've also got partner models now available inside of things like Photoshop and also Adobe Illustrator as well, where you can start doing things on those. If you do use Photoshop, you can just see those. Let me just grab the image here. So this is This is me inside of Photoshop, and this is an image that I've just loaded, and you can see here you can sort of choose to change the colour of the car, and this is just the generate fill option. If we click on the G down here, you can see we've also got Gemini 3 and 2.5 down here, and also the Flux 2 and Pro down there as well. And all I asked it to do was change the colour of the car, and let me just turn the layer on, and you can see there it's actually changed the colour of the car to a different colour, and this was choosing and using different partner models again, but also inside of Adobe Photoshop. But let's dive back to Adobe Firefly, because that's what I'm using mostly. Okay, so we can see here we've got like these two options here where I kind of like wanted to play about with these, and kind of I felt that these kind of like added a new dynamic kind of feeling, and many of the time this is kind of like how it actually felt going down the mountain in my mind's eye that I remember. And then what I wanted to do was kind of like thought, well, what I could do is actually add in the option of creating a video, because we've also got the option to create a video in here. And let's click load on these. We can see I've used VO 3.0 for these. Okay. And if we click play on this one, let me just center that one here in the middle. And we can see there that that looks really good, kind of like adds it back to that memory of me. And what I really like about using these models is if we look back to the reference image, you can see here on the reference image compared to these, that it's got my actual like look and feel of my helmet and my goggles. It actually looks and feels like me. Now, I wanted to kind of like show you like a little bit different. This is kind of using Firefly Boards, but we've also got generate image inside of Firefly, which is separate to using it in Boards. And here we've got the Gemini 2.5 or Nano Banana Pro, and you can choose the different aspect ratios down the side here, and then choose the reference image. Now, if I do switch that to Gemini 3, you've also got the option to choose and select a different resolution, which is really good. You can also then add up to 6 reference images, whereas I think 2.5 is, 4 reference images. So that's one of the differences with Gemini 3. And then I generated the image here, and for me that was really good. And I thought like, well, actually, what I want to do now is kind of like play about with this image and start changing things. And that's where I like to then kind of like jump into this side, and we can click on edit. And if we click on edit and edit image, you can see then what that allows me to do is type in the prompt to change the jacket to make it look like it's made out of teddy bear fur. And that's what exactly it's done there. So it's gone from me here to me there wearing a different jacket, and it's even kept like the reins from my backpack kind of like intact there, and they all look the same. And you can see here, if we do click through to the edit option, you can see you can start giving it kind of like different prompts of what you want to do when you want to actually change an image. So that's different partner models inside of Adobe Firefly and also inside of Photoshop. If you want to give them a go, try them. I'll put a link down below in the description for you. And until next time, thank you very much, and bye for now.